Hello and welcome. Happy Friday. Welcome into the Boilermaker Lounge. I'm Sam Sprunger. As always, joined by Grant Flora. Grant, as a portly gentleman that I am always happy that the weather starts getting cooler. And it's starting to get cooler, but you know what that means.
Means fall's right around the corner. Means college basketball's right around the corner.
Yeah. No, it's a great thing because the Boilermaker football team at this moment is undefeated. They do play USC tomorrow, which is a tall order. But our buddy Dustin Schutte thinks maybe the Boilermakers could pull something off there. If that's the case, 3-0 makes it a lot easier to get to October when you have some winning football to watch. But yeah, we're almost to October.
Yeah, the Purdue football's had more momentum right now than they've had in probably 2 or 3 years. So they get to host USC. Now is as good a time as any to get that win. It'll also be the time that Cameron Williams will be visiting. And
Mm-hmm.
of course, we know we talked about this probably a month or two ago, but he has both USC and Purdue on his list of schools. So really hoping that the Purdue football team can come through and maybe help out the basketball program too.
That's what I'm thinking is that Purdue could pull the win off there, that maybe Cameron will look and go, huh, well, let's go make some things happen with Purdue then. And just never mind USC. We'll just go to Purdue. But no, but yeah, we're a lot of different small topics for this week's episode, but some things to talk about, I guess. We were talking off air. Um, I saw a tweet or a post or whatever on X from the SID of Purdue men's basketball, Chris Foreman. He stated that Braden Smith is the only player in Big Ten history, in the history of all the Big Ten. That's a lot of years, Grant. That's a lot of
Yeah.
years.
Oh yeah.
But the only one in Big Ten history to have, and I'm looking it up real quick just to get the numbers correctly, with at least 1,300 points, 700 assists, and 500 rebounds. Oh, and he still has his entire senior season left to play. That can we? And you weren't around for this one. You were at cross country camp. Where do you put Braden Smith on your list of all-time Boilermakers? Because to me, that right there says he's one of the best to put on a Purdue uniform.
Yeah, that's a really good question because I think if I'm being honest, I think you have to have Zach Edey at number one
Well,
because back-to-back player of the year plus taking him to a championship game, like he has the stats, he has the individual accolades, and he has the team accolade. If you have Edey at number one and maybe Glenn Robinson at number two as of
I
right
have him
now,
I have him flipped, but
you have
that's
him
fine.
flipped.
One and two.
I
Those are
never
one and
watched
two.
I never watched Glenn play, so
Yeah, yeah, and I get
yeah,
it, and
but
I get why you would put Zach Edey first. So,
yeah.
I think you could probably put either one of those one and two.
Either way, if they're one and two, at this point in time, I don't know if you can put Braden Smith at number three yet, just because he still has a season. But with everything that he has on the table potentially for this season, once it's over, I think you can make the argument that he's at least a top three. And depending on how the team does, might even have an argument to be further up.
I think honestly that and I won't get into my reasoning because I already have on the show. But like if he does nothing, like if he, let's say something tragic and he blows out his knee, doesn't play another minute at Purdue, he's top 6 or 7 already. Like that's how good of a career he's put together. But he could easily get into that top 4, top 3 with a senior season that he basically just stays average.
Yeah.
If he just averages what he does, he's top 3 or 4.
Yeah, and I've heard some people talk and whatnot, and if he does everything that he could do this season, wins a national championship, wins National Player of the Year, potentially breaks an all-time assist record, like all of these different things that are within his wheelhouse to do, like he's gonna have more on his resume compared to other Purdue players than just
Mm-hmm.
about anybody. I mean, he'll have been to two national championship games and won one of them. he'll have a National Player of the Year. There's only, what, 3 Purdue players that have done that,
Yeah.
including Braden. Like, and then you have an assist record. Like, he will have checked all those boxes, and there's no reason why you wouldn't consider him to be right up there with Edey and Robinson.
Now, it's going to be a little bit of a stretch to get him to 2,000 points, but it is possible that he could end his career with 2,000 points, 1,000 assists, and that to me is absolutely unheard of. And you're right. Yeah, he had Zach Edey for the first 2 years of his career. He did. He absolutely did. But I think he was mutually beneficial to Zach Edey. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to say anybody could toss it into Zach Edey and he's going to get his points. But it doesn't necessarily take the special guy that Braden Smith is to get him the ball all the time. But I really do think that Braden Smith pulled people away from that double team or whatever that they were giving Edey to open up that lane. So I think they were both mutually benefited by each other. And but yeah, top 10 easily already doesn't play another minute.
Yeah, and I feel like
go ahead.
I feel like with those, like, cheap assists or whatever to Zach Edey, it was more Fletcher Loyer or Lance Jones throwing it in from the wings. Braden had to do more creative stuff with the pick and rolls and some of that stuff to get Edey the ball. The easy stuff, really, I think Fletcher Loyer and Lance Jones probably benefited more from that if you're talking about assists.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. And yeah, he got some easy. I like that, the easy assists by throwing it down and getting it to the 2-time National Player of the Year in 2 straight seasons. Each of his first 2 years. But it also showed last year, I think, the fact that he didn't decline in his assist output. That was the big thing. Is it didn't necessarily just go away because Zach Edey wasn't there any longer. He was just as effective. And yeah, I really think he's one heck of a ball player, and we are so blessed to have seen this kid from freshman all the way to what we're about to see senior season.
Right. If you go on to Field of 68 and listen to some things about Purdue, you'll hear Rob Doster talk about how he literally thinks Braden Smith's second half against Houston was as good of a half as he's seen any point guard play, like in the last 25 years.
I believe he assisted on 10 of 12 baskets in that second half.
And he had to work to get those guys in the right spots to make those passes. They weren't just the run-of-the-mill assists. Like, he had to manipulate that defense to get his guys in his spots and keep that offense afloat so they could hang with Houston. But yeah, like, everybody out there, it's not just his stats and his numbers and what he's done, but it's the way he's doing it, the way he can manipulate a defense, find the holes, make tough passes. Like, that's what really makes him skilled beyond the average good point guard. Like, the guy you would expect to be, a top 5 point guard in the league on a given year. This is what separates Braden Smith from that.
Yep, absolutely. And kind of on that same topic, but yet a different headline. Recently, Dick Vitale named his preseason All-Rolls-Royce team, which obviously we're sitting here talking about potentially the National Player of the Year preseason leader for that. Braden Smith's going to be on that. Obviously, he's. Let's see what Dick Vitale said. He said he was named Big Ten Player of the Year, the Bob Cousy Award last season, and first team All-American, where he averaged the maestro, the conductor, the diaper dandy turned veteran PT peer. The Bob Cousy Award winner led the entire nation last season in assists. The reigning Big Ten Player of the Year, and when you're breaking conference records for dimes, you're the Rolls-Royce of point guards. And he's Purdue's straw that stirs the drink. I think that's a perfect last line. That is exactly what Braden Smith is. It's perfect.
Yeah. It's like you said, he's kind of the linchpin to this offense in the sense that Purdue's so deep. Like, if they get an injury, even someone like TKR or Fletcher Loyer, like, obviously it's a setback, but it's not necessarily going to destroy their season. I
Yeah.
think Braden Smith is the one guy that if you lose him, it's pretty much you're not going to be talked about nearly as highly as what you are now. Omer Meyer being in the fold helps with that a little bit, but
Sure.
if they were to lose Braden at any time for any significant length of time, this team would take a massive hit. Even though he's not necessarily going to be the leading scorer, not necessarily
Don't
the
need him to
leading
be.
rebounder. Yeah, like he's not outside of assists from a stat standpoint. He's not like anything crazy compared to everybody else in this team.
Right.
But he just does that much for the team on the court that he's just so critical to what they're trying to do this season.
Well, and the fact that he's a 4-year starter, he's going to be able to calm people down.
Right.
I'm going to guess, and a lot of times that the point guard is kind of looked at like the catcher of the basketball court or the coach on the court. He's the one that's going to be telling, hey, you got to get your butt down there quicker, or you've got to come off that screen, set that screen. It's easier to take that from him when you know that he's putting in every bit as much work and he's been around and knows this offense and what the expectations are like the back of his hand. Like he just doesn't, I think he could be quizzed in his sleep and he'd be able to tell you exactly how that offense is supposed to run.
Right. Yeah. Like you said, being in the fold for that long, and he's just a very high IQ basketball player. Like you see that from his very first season at Purdue. He
Right.
just knows what he's doing on the court, and so all of those things that don't necessarily show up on a stat sheet don't necessarily show up when you're talking about like National Player of the Year stats. They're all so important and so good for a college basketball team. The things you kind of miss out on even more nowadays, just with so many guys flipping teams with transfers and leaving school early, all the different things you don't see point guards like Braden Smith staying in a school for 4 years. But when you do, it's pretty special, just like it is this season.
Well, and then on the other, we talked about a little bit about how many teams, and Dick Vitale does a first and second team, correct? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, first team, second team, and then
right.
a Diaper Dandies team.
Yeah. Well, he did include yet another Boilermaker on the second team, and that's TKR. TKR getting some more accolades, some recognition for what has happened. Dick Vitale said that there may not be a more improved basketball player more drastically than TKR from the year before last. Zach Edey's last year to this last season, where Edey's last season he averaged 6.4 points and 4 rebounds as a sophomore. As a junior, 20.1 points, 6.5 rebounds. This is a quote. Oh, he's a scoring dynamo. I'm not going to do the Dick Vitale voice. I'm just not going to. Averaged 20 points, 6 boards, 2 assists, and shot almost 60% of the floor. Are you kidding me? He's a scoring machine in the paint, baby. Vitale wrote, Matt Painter's paint crew is alive and well with TKR running the show up front. That's a big, huge jump that TKR made. Almost 14 points a game more with Zach Edey gone. That's not saying TKR is happy Zach Edey left, but he really got to show off what he could do on the court.
Yeah, that was, from what I understand, that was kind of the plan all along. Like, once Edey goes, TKR fills in the gap. He had the skill set. You saw flashes of it that sophomore year. I think he scored 22, 24 points against Illinois and Mackey and really helped them fend off the Illini in that one when they had Zach Edey that year. And so you knew he kind of had it in him, but to do it not just that well last season, to do it as consistently. I mean, he was 20 a game every night against top-notch competition. Like,
you were shocked if he was below.
Right. So I don't know if any of us, to be honest, expected that much of a jump. I didn't expect him to be automatic 20 every game like what Zach Edey was. Outside of the rebounds, like, he filled that gap pretty much perfectly in the scoring sense. Edey averaged 22 his senior year, and TKR was 20. Like, really not that much different. The only difference was rebounding, defensive presence, and things like that, which are super important. But from a scoring standpoint, to just fill in that gap, really as good as you could have asked for, was really impressive and shows just how talented he is and why the expectations are high for him and for Purdue this season.
Now, a normal basketball fan might see, and I would not be shocked to see TKR take a step back when it comes to scoring average per this year. People might see that as a knock, and honestly, Braden Smith probably could take a step back scoring wise, but yet I would look at both of those guys taking steps back, but TKR, especially the one that we're talking about, that big jump, if he takes a step back, I don't see necessarily as being a bad thing, because that means there's scoring happening other places and they don't have to rely on him. That's not to say they don't want to rely on him in points and go to him and feed him and let him do his thing, but they don't have to have him score 20 points every night.
Yeah, but keep in mind too, like, this is going to be probably the best offense in the country, if not one of the best offenses in the country. And also, I think they're going to keep the pace up a little bit. We've
Yeah.
seen in some of their practice clips, like, they're getting out in transition a little bit, especially with Omer Meyer now. If they keep the pace a little faster, that means more opportunities offensively. It's possible that TKR, Braden Smith could keep their numbers up, and yet this Purdue
Sure.
offense still goes up because the other players still chip in. So yeah, like, I think you're absolutely right. They could definitely take steps back, but it's not like we should just totally expect that and write that in
Oh, no.
as they're going to take steps back, because this Purdue offense will be so productive that it might be that everybody gets theirs and then some.
Yeah, I'm not at all insinuating that I expect it to take a step. I'm just saying it could,
Right.
and you wouldn't necessarily look at it as a bad thing. You just overall evaluation of the season and things like that, you may look at it and go, yeah, they scored 2 points or 3 points less a game, but my goodness, look at what all happened. I'm not expecting that. I'm just saying it could, and I would not be upset as long as they're not taking the step back and Purdue's regressing. That's the whole intent, is for the betterment of the team. So, and I think both of those guys definitely have a team first mentality. It's just I don't think either of them would still be here if they didn't. I really don't. If they didn't have the team first mentality, they both would be elsewhere this year. I just don't think there's any chance that that's a different answer than that.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, it's just going to be so fun to see these guys work together, work with the rest of the team, and still chase some of the individual stuff that they're basically being talked about for right now. But it's going to be from a team aspect. Like, that's not going to trump what the team has. That's not to say Braden Smith doesn't want to win National Player of the Year, but it's
Right.
going to work within the context of what this team's going to try and do. And so it just makes it fun as a fan to watch this team play, this team go after wins primarily, I should say, but still keeping an eye on those individual accolades, because they both have a chance to do really well in those areas.
Oh yeah, there's potential for a lot of postseason awards. I even made the statement last year about halfway through the season that if the progression from TKR came like it did the last season to this season, goodness gracious, I'm not saying that it would happen, but we could be talking about two potential finalists for the Wooden Award, just simply because they both improved. Now, a lot's happened since then, some players coming in, some and things like that very well may not make that a possibility, but I do think TKR is definitely on the Karl Malone watch list, and he'll stay steadfast in the middle of that most of the season.
Yeah, I was going to go there too. Like, Purdue could have 2 of the 5 award winners, like a Kuzi
Right.
Award and a Malone Award winner, very, very easily. So, and to be honest, you might see Fletcher Lawyer or Omer Meyer in one of those off-guard lists as well.
Right.
They could have people in just about all of those categories, at least in the top 10 or so.
Sure.
So, yeah, it's going to be really interesting to keep an eye on those lists as the season goes on too.
So I wanted to move to something that we hadn't really talked about it. We haven't talked about it. I know we haven't. But an article by our buddy Dustin Schutte a couple weeks ago at the tail end of August, talking about Mackey Magic. And I don't know if you saw this article or saw the numbers, Grant, but since 2021 22, that basketball season, Purdue has a 60-5 record at Mackey Arena.
Yeah, that's impressive.
And all 5 of those losses have come in the Big Ten. So they're non-con at home, 25-0. Now, don't get me wrong. They're not playing the likes of, Alabama every game, but they do have some games in there that they've pulled in pretty good. Now this year they have, I believe, Iowa State and maybe even Marquette coming in, which are both some pretty decent programs, have been pretty good. Shaka Smart at Marquette, and then with Iowa State, they were a tournament team and things like that last year. So I mean, definitely teams that are not just easy pushovers, but 60-5 since 2021-22. That is mind blowing to me.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about where those losses came from.
Wisconsin and Ohio State last year.
Yeah, Wisconsin, Ohio State last year. Wisconsin, that first season you're talking about, 2021-22.
Yeah, because that was the year they got the bank shot in Wisconsin.
That was on the road.
Yeah, right. But that was in Wisconsin. But they lost the other one at home to them too.
Johnny Davis and that team, and then they lost Indiana once. I'm trying to think of what the 5th game would have been.
The fact that we've recalled.
Yeah, like
we're sitting in August or September of 2025, and we're remembering the 4 of the 5 losses that they've had at home.
Right. Yeah,
they're that few and far between that we remember them vividly.
Yeah, like I don't think I can think of the other one. I really don't.
26 wins by 20 or more points. That includes all Big Ten and non-Big Ten. 40.1% at behind the 3-point line, best in the nation. That means
that's ridiculous.
Out of every 5 they're taking, they're making 2. That's a pretty darn good percentage.
Over 65 games, yeah.
Over 65 games, correct? Yes. It speaks about the ability to disrupt the opponents, because my buddy Dalton Shetler has done a ton of stuff with Michigan State basketball, the men's basketball team. He's now on the women's side, but he would dread Michigan State having to go to Mackey Arena every year because it just never ended well for him. And it didn't matter how good or how highly ranked they came in. It was always just a street fight. And the crowd was so disruptive. And guess what? Michigan State's got to go to Mackey again this year. And that's the only time they play is at Mackey.
Yeah. Purdue's schedule is really nice this year. I think they get Michigan and Michigan State in Mackey.
Illinois, too.
Illinois, Justin Mackey.
Yep.
Goes to some of the top teams. The only one they'll have to play on the road, really, I think, is UCLA. And, there'll be some other teams that probably come up that they have to play on the road. But
the only teams they play both home and away are Iowa, Wisconsin, and IU this year. Those are their only 2 plays, home and away.
And then I think they probably have to go to Ohio State, UCLA. Those are really the 2 main ones.
UCLA and USC, they've got to go to both of those. They'll play both of them on the same week.
Okay.
Much like most teams do.
Definitely games that could be difficult, especially on the road. But
they host Washington and Oregon.
Right. Oregon's a huge one to have at home. Not having to go to Chrysler, not having to go to Breslin, that's really not having to go to Champaign. And
I don't want to hear anybody saying, "Oh, well, the schedule's set them up." No, you know what? That's just a plus. It's just a plus. That's all it is. No, they're not doing well just because their schedule played out well for them. don't drink that Kool-Aid, folks.
Right. Yeah, you still gotta win the games. And road games in the Big Ten, I don't care who you're playing, are always tough. Like
Yep.
they just always are. And they have, UCLA, Ohio State, USC, those will all be difficult games to win, no matter how good those teams are ranked when they see Purdue, because they're gonna play their best against Purdue. And Purdue's gonna be on the road. Two of those games are gonna be on the West Coast. Like
Mm-hmm.
this is not going to be an easy thing to do by any means, but it is nice not having to go to Breslin, Champaign, or Chrysler.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? It will make them better having to go on the road and play in the Big Ten. But you know what? If you can avoid some of those really difficult plays, you know what? There are teams right now that are going, oh, thank goodness we ain't got to go to Mackey.
Mm-hmm.
You know, thank goodness we're playing Purdue at home. It's gonna be a fight anyways, but thank goodness we don't have to play with that crowd as well.
Right.
Pretty simple. But yeah, we definitely have an advantage, and I know we've talked about it in the past, but you see those posts asking coaches the toughest, or even players, the toughest place to play. There's a reason why Mackey Arena is mentioned more times than anybody else on that list. And you know what? It's not hard for Matt Painter, so that's one that that's not going to be Mackey. So like all the rest of them, if there are 5, I'm shocked that are more than 5 people saying it's more difficult to play elsewhere than Mackey Arena. It's a surprise, because most of those coaches that have been there know exactly what it's like to play in Mackey, and they don't want much of that.
Yeah. I feel like it's even more so the players that will say something other than Mackey. And to be honest, they probably just don't want to say Mackey all the time. Like, you don't want to give Mackey that satisfaction. And if they're not saying Mackey, they're saying something like Breslin, or maybe you'll hear something about Rutgers. But like most of the time, it's just a couple of other places that maybe a Michigan or Ohio State player will say Breslin because there's some rivalry there and things like that.
Yeah.
So,
well, and it's if you give them if you appease them and say Mackey, it's going to give them a big head. Well, if you say something else, it's going to make them mad, and they're just going to get more loud. So to make you change your mind, basically.
Yeah. I.e. what happened with Michigan last year.
Yeah, exactly. I still think Trey Donaldson, probably wakes up screaming about that, because to make a comment that it's just another place I played in the SEC, tough places. He didn't know what hit him when it came to that Friday night. But one last thing before we start going, before we get going for the weekend, did you see the video of Jack Benter throwing down a two-handed dunk?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. This is the kid we haven't even talked about, Grant, hardly at all. And he's putting in some highlights that just make you think he's got to get some minutes. Now, that's not to say that he's going to be the best player, but like he's going to be a spark plug, much like Cam Heide was a couple of years back in that national championship run season, to where he comes in and he just makes a couple of plays that you're like, whoa, we absolutely needed that.
Yeah. It's going to be really interesting. We've talked about this a lot, and see how the rotation plays out.
I plan on asking Matt Painter about the rotation at Media Days.
Yeah, because Benter and Antoine West were the two that I think coming in we saw as like potentially the ones that might kind of lose some minutes and maybe not see the most playing time with the rotation. They'd be the two that kind of were the odd men out, but they both look like they have to be playable right now. And if they both have to be played, where are those minutes going to come from? To me, Jakari Harris looks like the guy that's going to get maybe bumped back a little bit, but
we really haven't seen him yet either.
Last year. Right. So it's like you want to be able to play everybody, and everybody's playing in a way that just kind of indicates that they should be played, but ultimately someone's gotta give something. So we'll have to see how it all plays out. But
and you have to think that Coach Painter has totally prepped this coming into the season, prepped these guys for what could happen.
Right.
Now, I don't know, if it's at all a thing, but maybe there's a company that says, you know what, we can throw a couple extra bucks this way to this player, and maybe that appeases him to stick around. I
Right.
don't know. I'm not saying to pay your players to keep them there. That's what we do, though. That's the world we live in with college basketball and college football, college sports in general now. Uh, but there is going to be, if all of these guys warrant playing time, and you're sitting there going, how are they going to get? There are going to be some unhappy players at some point. It's part of life. It's gonna happen. It's not that I'm looking forward to it or thinking, it should happen. It's just gonna happen when you have all these players and only so many minutes to split up.
Yeah, it's I sure hope that guys like Jakari Harris and even CJ Cox aren't gonna um kind of lose their heads a little bit and maybe look elsewhere.
Right.
Like just because I like those players, I think they bring a lot to Purdue, especially you talk about like athleticism in the backcourt. They are two of the guys that can bring that, especially defensively. I think they have a lot of value on the team, but
For sure.
like you said, somebody's not going to be happy, and it's just a matter of whether or not they choose to believe in the process and the program and stick around, or whether
Yep.
they realize, I think it's time to go elsewhere. And I'm not trying to say that leaving Purdue for any of those guys would be a 100% wrong decision. Like it could be this the best for them, and it ends up being uh, something that the program can use to their
Sure.
advantage. And kind of like with Heidi and Colvin, I don't necessarily think it was the wrong decision for those guys to leave as much as I would have liked to have seen them stay. And
Right.
that might be the case for these backcourt guys too. But I would love to see them stay because I think they can add a lot to the team.
Well, and I think that may be why, we've mentioned that Matt Painter probably, and I would think that all the coaches have talked to these guys that might be those role players, not the big three, or one of the guys that is considered a starter this year. I mean, granted, there's a revolving door potentially for one of the starting positions in that lineup. But my point being is those guys that are role players, they need, I'm sure the coaching staff and Painter have talked. Look, after this season, there are plenty of minutes to go around. We just need to do the best we can. You'll get all the minutes I can give you this season and that you earn. But after this season, there's a lot of minutes on the board.
Yeah. And you got to see it too. Like the better you play, the more you're making the guys around you fight for those minutes too.
Sure,
So,
you're
like,
making the team better for that
right.
competition.
Even if you don't increase your minutes, like you're making the other guys better for getting theirs or making them better in practice, like all of those things, just because you don't play even 10 minutes a game doesn't mean you're not helping the team in a lot of different ways.
Right.
So you got to keep that in the frame of reference too if you're one of these Purdue players that's in this situation. If you buy into that, then I think we guys can stay kind of satisfied, stay hungry, and keep the right mindset.
Yeah, it's definitely, and I know we've mentioned that in the past, but not necessarily to the extent that we just talked about it there, because Jack Benter is going to make it harder for Matt Painter. But I think Matt Painter is not losing sleep over that. I think he's so excited about the fact that he's got to figure it out. You know, that's the sick and demented type of person that has that. I love these problems because, well, who wouldn't? I've got 5 spots, 200 minutes for the game, and I've got to figure out how to get 11 people in and get a good rotation. Don't get me wrong, it's nerve-wracking, but I think he loves it for the fact that I'll take that problem over where are my players coming from.
Right. Yeah, good problem to have. Matt Painter, he's been in this situation a little bit before, not necessarily to this extent, but like
Not
he's
this
had to
extent,
try and
right?
find minutes for guys. So I think he's the one you want to be coaching in this situation. Like if some other school had this problem with a different coach, it might be handled differently. I'm confident that Matt Painter is going to handle it correctly and handle it in a way that helps everyone to be as satisfied as they can be under the circumstances, and it should make this team really exciting. But yeah, we'll see kind of I'm sure when they play Kentucky in that exhibition, they're going to be cycling players through
Oh, sure.
constantly because they did that last year against Creighton. So, yeah, it'll be fun
And
to
the year
see all
before
those
against
guys play.
Arkansas, wasn't it?
Right. Yeah. To be honest, I'm not sure I expect Purdue to win that game simply because they're going to
No.
be doing so much to just figure guys out, get themselves ready. But it should be really fun to see all those guys in action.
They'll have an idea of the rotation that they want at that point, but they'll be able to figure out a little bit more during that exhibition of, okay, which players seem to be operating with one another well. There may very well may be, a point where Matt Painter subs out 4 people at once for the second team, and oh hey, by the way, the first couple of minutes we're gonna take Braden Smith out too. We'll get him back in a little quicker, but we'll get the rest of this. Could be a team that is so well rested, and because of the amount of talent that's in the rotation, that by the end of the season they're not worn out, because they're getting good rest. And 5 minutes a game for Braden Smith is an eternity for anybody else. Like he's used to averaging 36 to 38 minutes a game. He could have more, like he could be at 32, on average. And oh my goodness, really? You're getting 8 minutes rather than the 4 that's doubling the rest he normally gets.
Yeah. Especially depending on how Purdue is doing against teams like maybe with 5 minutes to go, games are well in hand. You get those extra breaks and stuff. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if his average is 32 or something like that, simply because they're going to have games where they blow people out. They can take him out. Plus, even when they're in competitive games, they can bring him out for a few minutes with Omer Meyer to come in and hold down the fort while he's gone. So that's going to be huge for him. And they should just be able to do different things at the end of the season so that they're always changing. They're not going to become predictable and easy to figure out by the end of the season. Like, they're going to be able to do some new things, have some new spark plugs that come in toward the end of the season that change what they do and make them tough to figure out in March even.
They might be, Grant, so difficult to defend and to play against that I think it could be to the point where they could walk on the court and say, we're doing this, and they still can't be, completely stopped. It's kind of like I can't even remember the team, but walking up to a football line and say, hey, we're running right through this gap right here. Tell the defense exactly where they're going. They run the ball and they get 15 yards on the run. Because they're just that they have the potential to be that good. Now, I don't disagree. Matt Painter's not going to want to obviously do that, and he's going to want to keep everybody on their toes. Good Lord, help every other team that Purdue plays if they get to the standard that we think they're going to be playing at this year. And oh, hey, by the way, they're going to throw wrinkles into it at the end of the season as well, because that makes it even more just a nightmare to play against.
Yeah, going to be Matt Painter is always creative with his sets and with his offense, and this year he's going to have so many options to be creative with. PJ Thompson as well. I know he's heavily involved in that, but it's going to be fun just to see what they come up with. Like, they're going to have so many things that they can do. So yeah, like you said, they're going to be able to do just about whatever they want if they do it right.
Yep. Well, that brings us to the end of this week's Boilermaker Lounge. One more week down, Grant. We got Boilermakers Trojans tomorrow at 3:00, I believe, tomorrow. Again, at Ross Aid, 3:30, sorry. 3:30 Eastern time, kickoff there. Hopefully the Boilermaker gridiron can pull off an upset, but you know what? We will cheer them on just as hard as we normally do, but also at the same time in the back of our minds go,
yeah.
So it's actually I love college football season for the reason that basketball follows. Mm-hmm. And that's not to say that I don't enjoy watching football and that I don't root for the Boilermakers on the field. I do, but I love what it indicates going coming next.
Right. Helps move the time a little quicker.
That's right. That's right. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us this week on Boilermaker Lounge. For Grant Flora, I'm Sam Sprunger. We'll see you next week.